former President Goodluck Jonathan, I will just ask him to stay out of this.
My people, this one sweet Tinubu supporters, well, big jubilation in APC as news break that a lawyer has dragged former President Goodluck Jonathan to court, saying his new presidential move is illegal and equals a third term. You go shocked when you hear the reason behind this case. Watch this video first.
About it borders on the law. So I've spoken to a few lawyers about it, and why some are of this position, others are of another position. Now, I spoke to a lawyer who said, look, the amendment says that you cannot be sworn in for more than 3 times. I went back to myself to read it, and I didn't see that. What I saw was that you cannot be sworn in more than twice. But the argument is that the law was made after Jonathan had exited from office. And on that basis, I now asked the lawyer, so does it mean that Jonathan can run for another 8 years? We got stuck, both of us. So if it says the law cannot be made retroactive and that he is qualified to run for 1 more term, and I said, so does it mean that he can also run for another term since the one that he had before was not caught by that law and all of that? So it's a very complex issue. Be it as it may, but my concern here is why like Bayo Ononoga said in one of his press statements, said, look, Mr. Jonathan, we welcome you, the president welcomes you, but be sure that you have your day in court. Going back to the court again. And a lot of people are saying, Jonathan come, Jonathan don't come. If I were to advise President Goodluck Jonathan, former President Goodluck Jonathan, I would just ask him to stay out of this. Fortunately and graciously, the man has not opened his mouth to tell anybody. I'm in for it. I'm going to jump into the fray. He's been consulting widely, consulting with PDP, consulting with ADC, consulting with family, friends, and associates, and all of that. It's only his aides, people close to him, that have said he's interested and all of that. But I think it is time for Jonathan to come out himself and tell Nigerians whether he's interested or not. 2027 is far away. It's about 2 years, but it is not early in the day for him to come out and say, look, this is what I want to be. And it's also important that I'm happy that someone has gone to court. At least the courts will have a final say in all of this so that the matter can be rested and we'll just move on.
All right. Well, a few things I need to interrogate and I'd like us to find out is who Jideobi is working for. You know, in that suit, he said, look, he's a Nigerian. I mean, if you talk about Locust Standai, he's a Nigerian. And if Jonathan wins the election, and he's likely to, that's what he said, he's likely to, it will affect him as a Nigerian, you know, especially if it's in breach of the Constitution. He's a constitutional lawyer, and if it's a breach of the Constitution, it affects him as a Nigerian. Of course, it affects all of us as Nigerians. Jonathan, former President Goodluck Jonathan, some would ask, who is afraid of him? Now, it's interesting that this has been taken to court, you know, regardless of what camp this individual is from. Something in me tells me he may not be from the camp of the APC or the opposition, you know, the ruling party, as it were, who's saying threatened by the re-emergence of GEJ.
Now, he may not be.
Yes, okay. He may not be from the ruling party or doing it on behalf of the ruling party. It may actually be somebody within the camp of Jonathan himself wanting to get this out of the way. I mean, if you put this in court and the court rules on it, then you know whether he would run or not to run. I mean, if the court issues a ruling, it's a good place, it's a springboard
for him to say,
decide, yeah, I'm out. You know, out. Okay. Exactly. I think it's a viable springboard.
Okay. I think I'm also of the thinking that this guy might just be a lone wolf who is seeking for popularity.
Could be a lone wolf. Could be.
Just looking for popularity.
Could be.
You know? But like you said, and I said too, it's important, you know, it's interesting to know that this is in the court, at least before 2020.
Now, the issue I have with that is, we know how cases are dragged in court. I mean, 2025 is gone. Electioneering starts, campaigning starts 2026. I think, how soon will this be, will the ruling come on this one? If it doesn't come on time, if it comes when parties have, you know, when people have been nominated to run for parties.
You know, this case will be thrown out very soon at the High Court level. You know why? Now, he says that he's a constitutional lawyer and that if Jonathan wins the election, that it is going to affect him. Now, as a Nigerian. Now, Barrister asked him the other day, said it is one of the mistakes in our jurisprudence, because he doesn't. The judge, like Omotosho said, in the case of the 5 people that went to court to say that the state of emergency in Rivers State affected them directly. You don't have evidence. You cannot prove. So Ofo might not have evidence. Jidobi might not have evidence to prove that Jonathan's winning the presidential election will injure him directly, will affect him directly. It is absent in our jurisprudence, in our law books. He cannot prove it. He doesn't have evidence. So the court is going to strike out this case. I mean, in fact, at the first instance of first hearing.
He took it from my mouth, because that was actually what I wanted to point out. The court will ask him to provide how this particular
will affect him, will
injure him as a person. That was what
based on what Barrister Adams said,
and also based on what
on the judgment of John Omotosho, the 5 people that went to court, against the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State.
Please, the judiciary should interpret this very fast so that Nigerians will understand it, to avoid this back and forth we're having. That's all I can say. Because one thing is making the constitution a bit ambiguous and creating other loopholes for people to be able to navigate. Let them come up to say this is how it's supposed to be. Then also, when the man is talking about Jonathan being able to become the president of Nigeria in 2027, I hope that particular amendment that we have before the House, I'm talking about the electoral amendment now, that says once the election is concluded, the ceremony should happen already before going to court and all that to happen. I'm talking about giving certificates of return.
Yes, that's one of the amendments to what's in the electoral act. So that the person, you don't go to court with a sitting president.
God bless you for understanding. So I hope maybe we can fast track all this and make Nigerians understand where
I don't know how we got to this point, because between 1979 and 1983, it was like this. Before the president is sworn in, the case must have been dispensed with up to the Supreme Court level. But the 1999 Constitution revised the whole of all of this, and that is why we are where we are. Because if you're a governor has won election already, and you are going to court, he's been sworn in. You are going to court against the governor. He has power
too, and all that.
Yes,
and it's difficult to win against
an incumbent in Nigeria.
Nigeria's former President Goodluck Jonathan is set to be considering aligning with the African Democratic Congress ahead of the 2027 general elections, as the party's coalition of opposition forces gather strength and intensify consultations with key political stakeholders across the country. In recent weeks, there have been reports suggesting that former President Goodluck Jonathan may contest the 2027 elections against President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Although Jonathan is yet to make an official statement regarding his intentions, several leaders of the People's Democratic Party have been calling on him to run on the party's platform. While some Nigerians support the idea and even suggest alternative platforms, others have advised him not to join the race. Well, with me here in the studios in Lagos, I do have the chairman of the African Democratic Congress in Lagos State, Mr. George Ashiru, joins me. Thank you so much for making it here on a Monday morning.
Yeah, my pleasure always, my brother.
All right. This conversation is one that I think we need to really dig deep, and hopefully you will give us the answers on a Monday morning that the viewers would love to hear. One of the big questions is there seems to be a lot of political titans who are rallying for the top prize, the main position. You do have, according to the rumors, the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, who's tinkering with the idea of joining the ADC, seems to be a party to beat now. And then you also have a former vice president, who used to be vice president as well, also looking to be part of it. Recently, he said he's not stepping down for anybody. I'm talking about Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. And then you also have a former 2023 presidential aspirant in the name of Mr. Peter Gregory Obi. That's not all. You have many others who are also there. Are you certain that the ADC will not implode now that you're happy? Isn't it going to be? Is it going to implode?
If we look at the history of Nigerian governance and politics, it has always been as a result of the coalition of powerful forces. The First Republic, it was a coalition of different forces in the various parliaments. The Second Republic, again, in order to form the NPN that formed government, it was different people, different political actors from the north, from the east. It was even only the southwest that had excluded itself by forming the UPN. And they came together in some form of a coalition to form government in 1979. And so what had happened in 1999 is similar. The presumption that it was just one group of people that formed government, it would have been a fallacy. It was different political, that you would say, juggernauts came together to form the PDP in order to be able to form government. Don't forget, other parties existed, and it was contested. And when people felt, okay, we have tried the PDP for a decade and a half, let us see if there's going to be another type of government, a different kind of leadership. And then, Nigerians rallied around an organization which is now still in government, whose name I don't think I need to mention because everybody knows. But this time around, the African Democratic Congress is the party that the Nigerian people, feel has the best potential, not having a history of malfeasance, not having a history of misgovernance and maladministration, and all of the things that bedevil everyone else, has a very strong constitution, and the DNA is something that appeals to Nigerians. That is the reason you can see so many different juggernauts who are part of the foundations of this country involved in what we're doing in African Democratic Congress. You see, there's a difference between them merging or creating a new party. They came into an existing party because they found that party to have the right kind of ideology that can bring all Nigerians together. So when you now speak about former President Goodluck Jonathan coming to our fold, we do hope so. We do hope so, because he will be in good company. He'll be in company of a man who was once a Senate president. He will be in the company of people that he's used to, that he trusts, that maybe never betrayed him, as he said he was betrayed. And that would make more sense than to stay within an organization that the betrayers were in and probably still are in.
But are you not worried? Because if the primaries do come, there seems to be so many names right there on the folders, in the folder rather. And who would you rather go for? Who would the people pick? The selection processes, the choice, every single thing borders on ensuring that you have the right candidates that will represent the ADC. And should this go south or not go well, don't you think it's going to backfire?
I think the key thing is that the ADC, as is constituted, as you can see, is a national party. So we have strong leaders in the southwest, the Aregbesolas, and so many others in the southwest. You have in the southeast, you have mentioned Mr. Peter Obi himself, His Excellencies, these two of them. And of course, in the north, you have, even in the south, we have the likes of Rotimi Amici, His Excellency. In the north, we have El-Rufai, His Excellency, and across, you know, the various individuals, Tambuwal and Co. So it shows that we have a broad consensus around this party. And these are people that are used to winning and losing. They understand the principles of negotiating and giving up seats for one another. So I think we're going to have an extremely important primaries when the time comes. And I suspect that you will be surprised that there will be consensus by the delegates in terms of who might end up becoming the presidential candidate. But it's too early for us to predict that, because we are only seeing the ones we have seen. There could be another 20, 30, 40 more juggernauts coming in the next few months. And so when they all come in, they will pull their resources together.
Too much ingredients, they say, spoils the soup. Isn't this going to be a very tough one to choose?
No, but it's better than having a one-man kind of party when one man decides the fate and the future of the party. That is not democratic, and that's what we're running away from.
Anyway, Dumebi Kachuku, who happens to be a former member of the party, as many have resorted that he's a former member, not an active member, is seeking a reversal of the court, reversal of the mentioning or naming of the current political leader, saying that it's illegal. Although we hear that the court has indeed thrown out that request. What's your take on having former members of the party who still say they're members and they're claiming to ensure that things are done properly, or are things not done properly as it stands?
Well, the critical decision-making process in the party is that there is a national executive committee of the party that comprises the national officers and the state chairman. And as long as the majority, because we have to remember again, we are not in a kakistocracy or in a dictatorship. When one person decides what happens in the entire party, people are allowed to have their dissenting opinions. But as long as the majority vote in a particular direction, that is democracy. And the votes in favor of what we are doing is that we have existed for 19 years. We have seen, in the same way, I'll give an example. Former President Buhari ran for office 3 times before realizing, I can't do it alone. He decided to come together with someone who was one of his greatest detractors to form the APC. And they were able to form government. So there's a realism that comes in politics that sometimes you can't go it alone. You need to partner with other Nigerians to show that you truly want to serve Nigeria, not just your own personal interests. So clearly we don't have a problem with that, but there will always be those who will say, maybe not. Then of course you brought something up about whether due process was followed. The consumer must have been consulted. Lawyers must have been consulted before the various moves were made. And the fact that INEC confirms that that process was followed and then it was ratified shows that if you go to court, every party you will call into a court case will say, as far as we can see, due process and the constitution was followed.
There's someone who's singing now a different kind of song, It's got to do with the song of listening to the angels, according to him. And he's saying that there's a voice that sounds like a thunderous. I don't know if it's out of God though. But he says the voice is telling him, go and join EDC, go and join EDC. I'm talking about Dr. Tunde Bakare, pastor as well, of the Citadel Global Community Church. Do you have any information on that? Is he likely to join the ADC? Has he reached out, or have you reached out?
I think the thing you have to find quite interesting is the fact that ADC is reaching out. The fact that leaders in the ADC are reaching out to every critical, prominent Nigerian, Muslim, Christian, North, South, East, West, North, Central, and that shows that the alliance we're trying to create, has a national outlook and represents every type of leadership. And I think that's the most important thing. So if we have reached out to Pastor Tunde Bakare, it means we're doing the right thing rather than exclude people like that from the process of, you see, these are people that fought for Nigeria. We let us not forget Save Nigeria Group, Occupy Nigeria Group, and all those things. They were prominent people. So for us to go ahead and not want them to be part of what we're doing, that is when you can then say that is actually trying to create an organization to serve somebody's personal interest.
Drop your thoughts in the comment section. I want to hear from you directly. And if you believe this story go shake 2027 election, don't forget to like this video, share it everywhere, and subscribe so you don't miss any new updates.